Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Augmenttors. I am delighted today to be joined by Adam Kerrigan from Intelligent Technical Solutions, here to talk about everything M&A when it comes to your MSP business. Some quick housekeeping notes to get things started, though. First of all, this webinar will be recorded, so those of you who have registered will get access to the recording, and we'll also make it publicly available on our YouTube channel afterwards. The Q&A and comment section is open, so if you have any questions or things specifically that you'd like to ask Adam, please drop them in there throughout the webinar, and we'll make time to go through those at the end. Very grateful to Augmentt for letting me do this show, where we're speaking with a lot of experts across the channel industry. So thank you, Augmentt. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Augmentt, channel-focused company that is specializing in helping MSPs simplify M365 security. So if you're an MSP that is kind of staying up at night, worried about, is my M365 secured for my clients? Did I update that check? Is the security posture enabled? Augmentt takes care of that for you with a few clicks, giving you peace of mind and making it easy to highlight your value to your customers. So without further ado, Adam, great to have you here. How are things? Tell us, where are you based at the minute?
Hey, George, great to see you. I do think I have to, before I answer your question, I think back to when we had dinner in San Diego with Tom, had a blast. I can't even remember the name of the place, but I want to go back, right? We got to go back. I love, you're blushing. I don't know why you're blushing.
It was great. I think we pulled up there in one of the, I don't know, the carts, the open cart, the paddle bike.
Yes. Yeah. The little bicycle guys.
We pulled up in there, but yeah, that's where we first met at a Robin's event. You had your infamous silver fanny pack on, and we're giving away candy at the booth, which seems to be a very underrated but very effective way of getting people to chat.
It's got to be the full-size candy bars, though. The little fun size, there's nothing fun about those. I'm just going to be honest, so.
Go big or go home. Your house must be, so do you do that Halloween as well for trick-or-treaters?
It's so funny, like my community I live in, there's almost no kids. So I get candy every year, and then I end up eating it all so anyway.
Well, before we jump into business, unfortunately, I've seen you on LinkedIn, proudly with not one, not two, but 3 gold medals, Adam. And I know that's part of a big hobby you have outside of the channel. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, appreciate that. So, So I'll tell more about my story about how I got into powerlifting briefly, but yes, I fell into a hobby and found I kind of have a natural talent for powerlifting. And I think it was 3 weeks ago here in Las Vegas, which is where I live and I'm based out of. We had the national championships. That was the 5th time that I've competed, and I was in 3 different categories, won gold, first place in all 3 of my categories. These right here that are kind of on my wall, I actually currently hold deadlift world records in my sport. So it's just something, I'm just a bigger guy, so kind of naturally slanted for it, but I love it. It's my hobby, and it's what I do to blow off steam.
I find, well, and rightly so, because Adam is I see him on the road a lot at channel events, one of the nicest guys you will meet, but kind of terrifying to think that he could probably snap your spine in half with his bare hands, knowing some of the weight he can shift around just with his own body. So maybe that can take us into a little bit more of your history, Adam. I mean,
yes.
We've been together for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of events. You're a well-known speaker on the subject of M&A. That's your specialty, and you kind of lead those activities over at Intelligent Technical Solutions. But you used to be an MSP. Like, you've been there, done that. You've worn the MSP hat. You were formerly, I think, you're saying with Las Vegas Nerds or something similar. She had changed your name. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Great segue. So like 99% of MSP owners, I was a tech. And, I was like, I'm really good at being a technician. Like, I want to start my business. I've got this entrepreneurial spirit. So in 2009, I started my MSP, and I quickly learned that knowing the technical aspect is just one of the easier things about running an MSP. But yeah, started as Las Vegas Geeks and in 2009. And frankly, after 10 years, I was burned out and struggling to find good people, especially in sales and marketing. And frankly, was just grinding to get to the next revenue level. And so in 2018, those are some of the reasons that led to my decision to partner and sell my MSP to ITS. And for me, it was a fantastic decision. I lost 80 pounds. I got out of a bad marriage. I got my nights and weekends back. I was able to start my hobby of competitive powerlifting. And, as I reflect on it, I'm just truly a happier, more financially secure person. I do admit, I know not everyone is suffering like I was. But that's being my partner and CEO Tom said, Adam, you're like the poster child for what M&A can do for people. And I was like, and in 2001, he asked me to take the helm of our M&A department. And so I feel really lucky now that I get to guide my brothers and sisters in the community through that process, having done it myself. And so that kind of paved the way for me to take a few hats off, take some of the stress off my life, get involved with hobbies. I love being able to vacation interruption free. I know the life of an owner, that is a very rare thing, and kudos to the people who are able to achieve both. But so, really excited to be here to share about my experience and to really, share for our audience what they stand to gain, whether they're looking to buy MSPs or they're looking to sell theirs and really move on to the next chapter of life.
Gotcha. So, Adam, whenever we talk about, M&A for MSPs, what are some of the common things that acquirers, people looking to buy, what are they looking for in an MSP?
Yeah, I would say that, if people have heard sessions or they've been to conferences, probably the very top thing that people talk about is culture, right? And the culture has to fit, because the way I look at it is like, look, it's not like I'm selling a house where I want to grind on this person and get the very best price, because I'm never going to see that person again. With coming together in a partnership, we're going to be working together probably for years. And the way that I assess this is the rule of thumb that I say is like, if I have a meal, say dinner with this person, first off, did I enjoy that meal, right? We don't have to be best friends, but I want to enjoy it. I loved our dinner, George. And, I think that's why we've connected. But second is, when I leave that dinner, do I want to do it again? And if the answer is yes, probably check that box, right? That's my sniff test. Now, beyond that, it really gets into financial aspects, which, there's a whole plethora of those, but I think it really starts with the relationship. At the core, we are service-based businesses. We're serving people, and we have to connect. Otherwise, it's really going to be tough.
Gotcha. So would you say that, things like, what systems or tools people are using aren't maybe as relevant as people think they are, or they, not to say they don't matter, but they're maybe not as relevant as, if you don't have the right culture in place, if we're not going to align in terms of our own business values and how we like to get things done, that's really the first thing that's going to...
Yeah, it's an interesting question, George, because the technician of our inner self, we have a lot of pride. We pick the best tool and the best backup product, and we have the best processes and SOPs. And so often, what tool set do you guys have enters into the conversation? And, the reality is it actually has very little bearing on the success of an outcome of a transaction and a partnership, because anyone that's been to conferences know there's a lot of tools out there, but ultimately the way I try to encourage people to think about it is, do our clients really care about the tools that are being used, or do they care about the relationship and the good support and being there at 2 a.m. on a Saturday when they really need us, right? Those are the things that matter. So I encourage my technically minded owners to say, hey, focus on the relationship and the clients and your staff, worry less about the tools.
Gotcha. Well, maybe I'll turn that kind of initial question on its head, Adam, and kind of ask, maybe what are some of the common issues or barriers that you experience or that you've come across in these conversations with regards to M&A?
Yeah. So I will say a couple of things. The M&A market within the MSP industry over the last year to 18 months has really shifted, and I'm seeing a couple of patterns, and there's two that I'll talk about. The first one is that M&A is pervasive. I think almost as much as cybersecurity, it's the most talked about subject anywhere you go, right? Peer groups and conferences and everything. And so it's on everybody's mind and it's in our face. And so the first thing is that owners as entrepreneurs, they're opportunistic and they want to take advantage of where things are succeeding. And I am a believer that the biggest challenge as an MSP, the number one hardest thing as an MSP is new client sales. And it's something that every business is always working to get better at. And it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's exhausting. And what I find is that some people are like, you know what, I've been trying to grow. That was one of my challenges. I was stuck at a certain revenue level of trying to break through. I'm not making much headway there. I want to try something new and different. I want to try this M&A thing. I hear a lot of people doing it. I hear a lot of success. It's new and shiny. It's a little bit of a break from the day to day. So let me get focused over here. And I'm running in the first pattern that I'm seeing is that a lot of people are now considering themselves as buyers, right? The reality is most people only know about it in theory, right? Or they've seen they've seen a peer group member, or they know people that have done it. I always encourage people, hire experts to kind of, whether it's an advisor or a trusted ally to help guide you through that process, because it's complex and missteps can be very costly. The second pattern that I've seen is kind of builds upon the first, where M&A being this new shiny object, a lot of us have ADHD, so we get distracted. Ooh, butterfly, right? The problem is, and this is something I've seen develop just in the last 12 months, and this is I would say almost a tragedy, where owners have been so consistent, they've been growing successfully, like double-digit year over year over year, and suddenly they get distracted with M&A, and what happens is they take their foot off the gas of sales. And so they're at this fork in the road of like, do I M&A? Do I do it now? And that when they finally make a decision, what they realize is they probably lost a couple of customers. And because they've been distracted with M&A, they have failed to refill their pipeline. And we all know how you can't just turn a switch and fill your pipe back up. I know George Urin sells the same way. You got to constantly be putting people into the top of the funnel. And what happens is when a person does commit to say, hey, I'm going to sell my business, I'm going to sell it now, they make that emotional commitment. The numbers were good, and then they're down. And that is a crushing blow because people are simply not getting the buyers that they want to come to the table. And maybe even more importantly, they're simply getting less value than they would have hoped for because of the recent downturn in their sales.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it like that, actually, but I think it makes perfect sense. It's almost kind of taking your foot off the gas to look at M&A, and that's actually the opposite of what you want to do. You want to keep growing, making yourself lucrative and attractive as possible. But there's also something to be said for, red flags or barriers or doing things for the wrong reason around buying as well. And I think you had a really good LinkedIn post on this recently, Adam, where it was kind of the same reason where people begin to stagnate and think, I'm just going to buy another MSP and that will give me the growth I need. And I think you had some really good points on that. Maybe you can share with us about why you went.
Yeah. One of the questions that I will get that is becoming more and more common is like, Adam, when should I seriously consider buying other MSPs? And it is a completely valid strategy. We at ITS, we've done it 16 times. When the right time, at least one of the major indicators is that you have solved organic sales, that you are consistently selling. And I don't mean just your existing clients. I'm talking new client logos, like new client wins. When you have solved that problem, that is a great indicator that you're probably mature and ready for M&A. And the reason that I say that is, let's say you're struggling with sales, right? You're maybe you're flat, you're kind of keeping pace, or maybe like 1 or 2 degrees of growth over year to year. The problem is that now if you buy another MSP, you've now doubled your problem. Now you're trying to solve sales in your existing location, and now you're trying to solve sales in a new location. And again, my belief is sales is the number one toughest thing. And, I'm a fan of minimizing my problems, not making them bigger.
For sure. Okay, so to kind of strip things back then, I'm an MSP. I'm looking to sell. I'm taking your advice and not taking my foot off the gas. We want to keep organic growth. We want to keep adding new logos. We want to make ourselves as attractive as possible. But what are some of the other things, Adam, that I need to start that I need to start doing in order to get myself ready and be more attractive and presentable and informed whenever having conversations with potential buyers?
Yeah, love the question. So recently I've met with a number of MSPs. I mean, I talked to hundreds of them, but one pattern that I'm seeing is a differentiator. I know that people probably at Kaseya and ConnectWise will love me for what I'm about to say, but people that are in peer groups perform significantly higher, right? From profitability, from growth. And so when I'm talking to somebody that has no involvement in a peer group, it's not all the time, but typically I would say 90% of the time, they're simply performing less than they could. And so to get ready for a transaction, it takes time, right? Cleaning up your books, getting things systematized, pulling yourself out of the day to day. That takes experimenting, failing, and succeeding. And one of the fastest ways to learn is through peer groups. The second one, read. I'm a huge fan of reading, personal investment, on business topics or psychology or sales or things of that, just ever leveling up. I'm a big believer that a business can only grow to the level of an owner, and we are the cap, right? So if our business is going to grow, we got to grow.
Got it. So what would you say then to, the emotional side though of selling? I mean, I've heard stories where, folks have looked to sell and then kind of, pulled the plug or got cold feet at the last second because, to your point, I mean, you've been there, you've done this, you've been a business owner, you had your own MSP. It's really hard to untangle your sense of self or your identity with that business.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you had to sell or were beginning to think about that, what were some of the the emotional points or things that you were experiencing?
Yeah.
How did you ultimately move forward?
How much time do we have today? Yeah, oh man, at every stage of the process, there's this great, when selling and even when buying, but when selling, there's a roller coaster of emotion that a person goes through. And part of it is, the high of making a decision to sell and the high of saying, oh my God, there's a lot of people that actually have genuine interest. Like I built something of value here. And then there's a lot of challenges. One of the classic ones is like, everyone thinks their baby is the prettiest until somebody calls it ugly, right? And that hurts, right? Then even fast forward to after you've come into a partnership and say you sold. One of the things that I personally have, I still can remember the feelings of realizing that the buck didn't stop with me, which meant I had given up some share of control, right? I was not empowered to make all decisions. I had taken that CEO hat off, and knowing that I now had to work collaboratively as part of a larger team, that was a bit of a blow to an ego for me. And I've seen every single owner have to face that. We all deal with it in different ways. But one thing importantly that I will say during the transaction, and this tends to be during due diligence, which is the period from when I say you've signed an LOI, which is kind of like getting engaged to a potential suitor, and the closing, which is like the marriage, right? So you're kind of in this engagement period. It's called the due diligence. I have found that without exception, every owner will face one big emotional hurdle that they must jump over. And if they fail to do that, the deal will fall apart.
What are some examples of that kind of emotional hurdle? I mean, do people can they get defensive sometimes whenever due diligence begins?
Oh yeah. Defensiveness is a big one because the process of due diligence is to, in a sense, understand the investment that's being made, right? It's to confirm everything that you told us in advance, this rosy picture. We want to really see if it's truly rosy. And it can be an exposing, vulnerable thing. I mean, in a business sense, you're stripping naked in front of these people that you kind of barely know in most cases, right? And even if it's with a peer group member that somebody you've known for years, there's a good chance there's going to be people you don't know, maybe attorneys and so forth, or other investors. It's a very exposing experience to get real. And when somebody points out flaws and they say, hey, tell me why you spent money here, and why did you do this, and why did you make this decision, and why did this client leave you, and why is your sales pipe so small? Oh my God, that can feel overwhelming, all of that coming at you. And it's typically in a 60-day process. And it's like getting hit with a fire hose. And on top of it, you're trying to run your business, right? And so it's exhausting mentally, physically, emotionally. I literally I say that selling your business in terms of a life experience only is behind the death of a loved one and divorce. That selling a business is the third most stressful thing in a person's life that they can go through. So having good people around you, good advisors, friends that have been there, confidants, getting through that process and mentally and emotionally committing, yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, are these the right people? It's a good way to get started.
So could you maybe share a story, Adam, of an acquisition, like at a high level that I think you said, you've been part of 16 plus maybe with ITS, like that was successful. Like what were some of the key things that really stacked on top of each other where you think back and go, yep, that was a really smooth, good acquisition. That was a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, I can think of a great one, although there's a number to pick from, but one that immediately came to mind is a group called Leap Ahead IT. They're based out of Sacramento. And Sean Harris, coincidentally, he and I met at Chartech years ago in Sales Lab. But fast forward, I'm at ITS, and he had grown his business, and he had kind of topped out. He was, running into the classic challenges of a little bit of burnout, a lot of burden, hadn't taken a vacation in a long time, and was looking for a trusted partner to kind of come in. Coincidentally, we're on the West Coast, and we're already in California. So we started talking, we started building this conversation around a partnership. Well, Sean committed, came over, and for him, it's been pretty dramatically changing because for him, a couple of things. So first off, he's been able to take off some of those hats that are stressful, HR and accounting and the things that he's less excited about. And on top of that, he's been able to pursue some of the things that he is excited about, which he loves cybersecurity. He's a part-time professor at the university there in Sacramento. And so he loves cybersecurity and everything that's involved with that. And so over the last year, he's helped us build our own internal SOC. And so for me, the fact that he's reduced his stress, he's been able to pursue things that he's passionate about. His people have been able to grow as part of a bigger team to take on more job career options for themselves. Those to me are some of the signs of a great successful partnership that everybody across the board is winning.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's maybe a common benefit that maybe gets overlooked sometimes because of, as you mentioned, all the stress that comes with selling your company. But there's also an opportunity there for you to, as a business owner, yes, you, in one sense, you're giving up that CEO ownership cap, but you're allowed to kind of rediscover your focus or your passion. I mean, is that something that you did after selling your business and moving with ITS? It seems like you were able to really get involved on the sales side of things. Is that something you were always passionate about?
Yeah, interestingly, so I was a classic technician. And when I came over to ITS, I was going to lead our technical team. And 2 weeks into our integration, I realized I made a drastic mistake. I went to Tom. I said, Tom, I had my head in my hands. And I was like, I made a mistake. And he's like, oh my God, do you want your business back? And I was like, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I am done fixing tickets. I'm done climbing under desks. Believe it or not, I'd love to do sales. I'd love to focus on the relationships. And, I find that owners tend to care about three things. One is obviously they want the best for themselves, right? This business they've built. But second is they want great things for their people. They want to see their people succeed, especially the people that have been loyal for even decades. And then third is they want their clients, right? The ones that have been loyal, they want their clients to get even better service. And so for me, I was able to move over to sales, became our most productive salesman for 3 years, really was able to re-energize, improve my communication skills, just came into a great culture that was really supportive. My people were able to grow their own careers, and then my clients were getting even better service, better than I was able to provide myself. So for me, I felt like I checked all three of those boxes. And again, those are, to me, classic signs of a partnership being successful.
Amazing. Well, last couple of questions here, Adam. But before we wrap up, I mean, what are some of the most common questions that you get asked at some of the shows and presentations that you do that we may have missed or not covered here today? Is there any common themes or repetitive inquiries that you get that you feel a lot of people would like to know?
Yeah, one of the patterns that I've seen are buyers of MSPs, they tend to look at MSPs that are like 3 million of revenue and below that. And so often smaller MSPs can feel left out. Now, to their benefit, buyers, even say people like such as us at ITS, we're open to looking at smaller MSPs, even down to $1 million. And so it's surprising. Like, I was literally just talking to somebody, oh, Adam, I know nobody wants to talk to me. I'm only $1.5 million of revenue. I was like, well, actually, $1 million of revenue works for us. And he was shocked. So we had a deeper conversation. But the other pattern that I'm seeing is it is still a great time to sell. There's been a lot of fear around interest rates. You know, everyone talks about these high interest rates and everything else. And hey, that's going to bring the offers down. Believe it or not, I'm seeing offers go up. I don't think it's a reflection of the interest rate. I think it's just how much excitement there is in M&A. But MSPs of all sizes that I've seen, their valuations are going up. Now, I'll end that with the biggest common question that everyone has is, Adam, what's my MSP worth? It's a complicated question, right? I know everyone wants a quick answer. It's a kind of an in-depth thing to answer, but you know, if there's questions and things of that nature, I'm happy to kind of point people in a direction that can get them a ballpark figure.
Okay, great. And before maybe we just learn a little bit more about ITS, one question I have is, you mentioned kind of ongoing education, big fan of books. Is there anything that you're reading at the minute, or maybe a top recommendation you'd have for
Yes. So I love reading sales books. I think one of my sales Bibles is Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt. Love that book. I'm currently reading Baseline Selling. But I will tell you the favorite book that I've ever written, and this is kind of on the personal side, is called The Untethered Soul. And it's a bit metaphysical. I'm not really religious or spiritual or anything like that, but it helped me. I'll tell you this. When I came over to ITS, I was really struggling with happiness. And I went to Tom, and Tom, my partner, he's the most real man I know. I said, Tom, I just want to be a happier person. Do you have any reading recommendations? And he pulled his phone out and he's like, here's 3. And The Untethered Soul was one of those. And so I would say to our audience, if anybody here is struggling to find happiness in life, I got a ton of value out of The Untethered Soul.
Yeah, I'd actually echo that. And that's a book I actually read last year as well, and loved it. For anyone and it's all
high five.
It's all about just kind of finding your flow. And once you understand what makes you tick and where you find that sense of flow and purpose, then things really begin to accelerate. And if you don't feel like that, you kind of maybe know it's really focused. I think it does a really good job of putting verbiage to that feeling that a lot of people have, which is, I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And how do I find what I'm meant to be doing and bring success to that? So yeah, great recommendation.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, Adam, if there's any MSPs, who are on the call today, seeing this in the future, and they want to have a conversation or maybe even a possible transaction with ITS, what's the best way to get in touch with you? And what kind of what would those steps look like? Is there a big call at a boardroom, or what? If someone's interested, what are they looking for, and what are the next steps?
Well, we fly them out in the private jet. No, there's none of that. And there's also no bicycles involved. But I'll say this. And one other bonus reading recommendation, Gap Selling by Keenan. Love that book. But yeah, for people that have questions, you can find me online or on LinkedIn, Adam Kerrigan, and on our website, itsasap.com. At the bottom is our partnerships link, which there's some videos, some helpful information. We've even got some case studies that we've done on some of the partnerships that we've come in about what life was like before, during, and after joining ITS. I even love talking strategy. So even if somebody's not looking to sell, I love getting connected with people. Feel free to text me, call me. My number's on my LinkedIn, my cell phone. So feel free to reach out on my iPhone anytime.
Great. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you sharing your story and all the great advice here. And looking forward to seeing you again in person soon. And I still want that weightlifting session with you. Not so much to compete, just for a few pointers. Actually kind of see you do your thing and then walk away feeling a lot weaker myself. But thanks again for your time. Thanks for everyone for joining. Wait, before we go, we have one question that's come in.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. My MSP has been approached by another big MSP to merge our companies, the culture fits.
Yes.
What advice would you give me since I'll have a smaller share of a bigger pie? The intention / goal is to sell to the bigger combined MSP.
Recently, the whole pie analogy, but yes, the question is, do you want to have a big slice of a small pie, or do you want to have a small slice of a big pie? I know it's kind of a silly question, but the reality is the size of your share in the overall pie is irrelevant. Your equity dollars is really what matters. So whether the pie is 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million, the fact that you have 1 million of that is great. And so building and growing to kind of the next level is really creates that arbitrage. It's kind of an in-depth subject. Love to chat with it. But yeah, Leonard, thanks for asking the question. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight. But the answer is, yeah, if the culture fits, you're probably on the right track.
Nice. So yeah, Leonard, feel free to reach out to Adam on LinkedIn or via email, and maybe continue that discussion. That's it for time, everyone. Thanks again so much. Adam, once again, thank you. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your July and stay safe. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.